welcome to YOUCANIC. In this video we're going to show you how to find out why your check engine light is on. So if your check engine light comes on, a lot of people panic because you just think that's going to be an expensive repair, but that's not always the case. And what we're going to do here, we're going to show you how you can find out, you can read the codes, find out what codes there are, how to do a little bit of research, because most of the time the problem can be something very simple. It could be as simple as a loose gas cap actually, but you can check out those basics. You can eliminate those basic repairs yourself, and even if you have to take it to a shop, you'll have a better understanding of what's wrong with your car. So even that way you can also research prices and repairs and be informed when you go see your mechanic. So what we'll do, we'll use a basic OBD2 scanner. Now when you take your car to a repair shop or to your dealer, they have a professional level scanner, and what those scanners do, they can get into more, what those scanners do is that they can read for example Mercedes specific codes, but the check engine light also sets a generic code, meaning a code that's required for emission purposes. So those codes are pretty standard, and a generic OBD2 scanner can read them. A Bluetooth adapter you sell for like $15 really. They can read your codes, and 9 out of 10 that generic code will give you enough information as to what's wrong with the car. Now there are a few cases that you'll need a professional scanner, but this is a good starting point because you can really eliminate a lot of issues and find out why your check engine light is on. So here we can see the check engine light is on, and this is a Mercedes-Benz, but this procedure really works on any make and model. And these scanners you can buy on your favorite online store. You don't have to go for an expensive one because they really all do the same thing. Unless it's a one scanner that says specific for your make, then don't worry about what brand you buy. If you want one for your make, just search for, let's say, Mercedes old system scanner, and that way you can read Mercedes specific codes. But other than that, these generic ones, they run between 15 to up to 60 and 70 in some cases. They all really do the same thing. Some of the more expensive ones show you live graphs and things like that, but you're not gonna dive into those things. It's very rare for an owner to really start looking at the graphs and O2 sensor data and things like that. So don't worry about that. We're gonna connect this under the OBD2 port, and now all vehicles have the OBD2 port. It's called onboard diagnostic port, and it's located under the dashboard. It has this trapezoid shape, so it's this is the male and the female is under the dash. Most of the cars will have it right under the dash. It might be covered, it might be in the fuse, like if you have a fuse panel right here, you might have a cover that you pop that off and then you'll see the port. BMWs and Mercedes have it further down. It just still has a little cover about that big. You just have to pop that out and then you'll see the port. Very few cars, like some Subaru Saabs and maybe some Porsches, might have it on the center console, right next to a cigarette outlet, or right under here actually on the central armrest. And very, very rare, it could also be on the passenger side, on the side right here. So but 99% of the time it'll be right under the dashboard. So let's go ahead and plug this in. Okay, so we have plugged in the scanner, and once you plug in the scanner, the next thing you'll need to do is turn on the ignition. 1-2 clicks. If you got a key, you have to turn. Your dash lights will turn on. Do not start the engine, even though you can read the codes with the engine running. If your car has a start-stop button, what you'll do is you'll press that start-stop twice without pressing the brake pedal. That will turn on the ignition, but will not start the car. And then that will power on the scanner. On your scanner, once it powers on, just simply press enter. This goes through the different protocols. So domestic, Asian, and some European cars will use different protocols, but all the scanner will do is we'll just go and test each one and see which one is this vehicle using. So let's go here, and then once you run the test, it says malfunction indication light is on. That's not the code for check engine light. And then this is it will show you how many codes there are and how many systems are ready for to pass emission. We'll go over that in a minute. So codes monitors, not applicable to. All right, so and here we'll just select engine, and then this is where we read the codes. We can clear them, but clearing them doesn't necessarily fix anything, because you first need to understand what's wrong with your car and address that issue. So we'll press enter to read codes, and then we'll read stored codes, and you can see camshaft position sensor, A circuit, high bank. But most important is this right here, P0348, and we have only one code. Alright, so you can also read pending codes. These are codes that might be coming up. The system has detected an issue, but hasn't triggered that code yet because it hasn't detected it enough times to say, hey, this is a permanent code, this is a issue that's, you know, it's not going away. So those are pending codes. A lot of times when somebody sells a car, for example, they will clear the codes with a scanner like this, or they'll just disconnect the battery, and what happens is that you start the car and your check engine light is off, but then there's pending codes because the issue hasn't been fixed. So the pending codes are there for 2-3 days or so, and then it goes into store or current code. Depending on the scanner, it might say current code. Okay, so look out for that, and then once you figure out the code, what you want to do is, in this case, we'll show you where that camshaft position sensor is. A lot of times we'll say you might have a evap a system leak, which could be due to a loose gas cap. But what you do is you'll take that code P0348, and then you'll make whatever it is, Acura, Dodge, Lexus, BMW, Mercedes, just the name of it, and then go online and then search your code, your make, and hit enter, and then you will get a lot of results. But you can start reading those top 2-3 results, and those are more likely to be what's the problem in your case as well. Not always, that's not always going to be the case, but at least just that code will point you in the right direction. You probably end up seeing pictures of the parts that could be wrong. A lot of times it's very straightforward. Like in this case, it's actually pretty straightforward. P034, camshaft position sensor, circuit high. So we know where that is, and if you don't, you can just research that, like that title and also your make, and it'll show you a picture of that camshaft position sensor, and you can go even further and look at like kind of what prices those sensors go for and how much they cost to replace. In a lot of discussion forums, you'll see people talking about how much they spend. But anyway, let's take a look at where this sensor is. We're here by the engine. You see the engine cover right here. I look like it's hard to come off, but it just pops right off, and that's the case with most modern cars nowadays. You'll have a big plastic cover on top, but the most that they'll have is a few plastic retainers, and that's about it. Then here we have the camshaft position sensor. Now this vehicle has 4, 1, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. V6 engine. So, but with that code, if you research that further, you will be able to find that it's this sensor right here. And honestly, to replace this one, all you have is a Torx bolt right here, that you take that off, you disconnect this connector, and then you simply pull this out and replace it. It takes 15 minutes the most. So something like that will be really easy. Of course, if it's your gas cap, it will be really easy as well. But once you address that issue, you want to go back, read the codes, and clear them. Now, you don't necessarily always have to clear. You can, a lot of times, if you think you address the issue, you drive the car for 2, 3, 4 days, normal driving, so probably 2-3 driving cycles per day. If you do that for 3 or 4 days, the check engine light will continue to monitor that sensor. It will see that it's not having an issue anymore, and it will just reset the check engine light on its own. It will reset that code. So yeah, you don't necessarily always have to clear the light if you don't want to, but since you're doing all this work, it's usually good practice to go ahead and clear the light and just make sure it doesn't come back on. So let's take a look though how you clear that light. Okay, so we have the codes, right? So in this case we only have one. If you had more than one, you'll scroll up and down, you'll see more codes. And old scanners, you know, kind of function the same way. If you're using your phone, it'll be a little bit different, but you'll still be able to read codes and erase them. So next, once you fix the problem, you'll come here and erase the codes, right? Press enter, enter, erase, done. Then once you do the erase, turn off the ignition, wait 5 seconds, turn it back on, and then start. Okay, so one other important thing to note here is, sure, you can view live sensor data. You can view data from O2 sensors and stuff, mass airflow sensor, air intake temperature, but that's not going to be a lot of help for most DIY. But one thing that's really helpful in this, and most scanners offer this, is called IM readiness. So this is very critical because it can tell you two things, or it can help you in two scenarios. One, if you need to take the vehicle for emission test, you can just basically, before you head to emission station, you can just plug in a scanner, check if the emission status is ready, and you head down. Otherwise, you might go all the way down there and they'll tell you like, you need to drive your vehicle some more, because you just erased the code, or maybe you just disconnected the battery. Most vehicles have 7 systems that monitored emissions, and if the check engine light was cleared, it takes some time for those systems to check if they're operating properly. So that's why, like, emission readiness, it takes usually 2-3 days of driving, you know, 2-3 cycles per day, and within a week basically your vehicle should be ready to pass emission test, as long as there's no other issues, right? As long as you don't have any pending codes or anything like that. But one other thing that these can tell you, if you bought a car and somebody erased that check engine light before you went to look at it, this can tell you. So it's really good to have one of these scanners with you, especially if you're buying a vehicle. You can just have one of these scanners and check if the check engine light was erased. And let's take a look at how that looks. So you'd come to IM readiness, or I might say emission readiness, or something along those lines, and it'll say this driving cycle, we don't want this driving cycle. We want to see since DDCs were cleared. We want to go back as far as we can. All right, so check engine light is off. Misfire monitor is on. So here you see all these systems that say okay, 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 but then look at that catalytic monitor incomplete. It's because catalytic monitoring takes a few driving cycles to test itself and say, yep, you're okay. So that means because we just erased the check engine light, that's going to be incomplete. It's going to look the same way if you go buy a car and somebody erased the check engine light. It's going to show incomplete. It's going to show incomplete on a few systems, not on just one. It might say incomplete, or it might say not ready. It's basically the same thing. So here we have evap system monitoring. So your fuel system, it's sealed. If it's leaking, if it's got an issue like that, it's going to set a code. That takes a few driving cycles as well. If you just erase the code, it's going to take 2-3 days for that code to come on, or to say okay, no issue with that system. So it's not saying okay, saying incomplete, we just reset it. Secondary air system incomplete. Here you have NA, and you'll have some systems that say not applicable. Don't worry about those. You're looking to make sure that you have all systems okay and not applicable, if there is any not applicable. But in this case, look at how many incompletes we have. I mean, a car that's been driven and hasn't had the check engine light reset in the last, let's say 1 or 2 weeks, or hasn't had the battery disconnected, it's not going to have any incompletes. Okay, so now the other thing with these incompletes, if you take this vehicle for an emission test, they're going to tell you you can't pass the emission. Go drive some more and come back. So yeah, you can check here. Once all these show okay, you're good to go and take it for emission test. But that's it. As far as reading and clearing codes, one thing to note is that a lot of times there's auto parts stores that will read your codes for free. All they're going to give you a code and a description. It's important to just go and do some research on your own and try to understand what is going on. Even if you don't plan on fixing the issue,
A lot of times it could be something very simple, like a mass airflow sensor, for example. It might sound scary at first, but it's literally, on most cars, it's only 2 screws. It's pretty easy to access, and it's the part itself, it could be like $50 at most, versus if you go to auto repair shop or if you go to your dealer, you're gonna pay $300, $400, $500 to replace a mass airflow sensor. If you think you have a loose gas cap, well, you're gonna get a code for that. We do have a database with all the codes and what they mean. You can simply search YOUCANIC DTC codes, but you can search those codes anywhere online. So yep, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you got any questions, make sure to read our guide below. We'll go into more detail, and also if you got any questions, you can always leave a comment. And thank you for